The White House Presidential Actions Restoring the United States Department of War. Executive Orders, September 5th, 2025. By the authority vested in me as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered. Section 1. Purpose. On August 7th, 1789, 236 years ago, President George Washington signed into law a bill establishing the United States Department of War to oversee the operation and maintenance of the military and naval affairs. It was under this name that the Department of War, along with the later formed Department of the Navy, won the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II, inspiring awe and confidence in our nation's military and ensuring freedom and prosperity for all Americans. The founders chose this name to signal our strength and resolve to the world. The name Department of War, more than the current Department of Defense, ensures peace through strength, as it demonstrates our ability and willingness to fight and win wars on behalf of our nation at a moment's notice, not just to defend. This name sharpens the department's focus on our own national interest and adversaries' focus on our willingness and availability to wage wars to secure what is ours. I have therefore determined that this department should once again be known as the Department of War, and the Secretary should be known as the Secretary of War instead of the Secretary of Defense. Section 2. Implementation. The Secretary of Defense is authorized by the use of this additional title, Secretary of War, and may be recognized by that title in official correspondence, public communications, ceremonial context, and non-statutory documents within the executive branch. B. The Department of Defense and the Oval Office of Secretary of Defense may be referred to as the Department of War and the Office of Secretary of War, respectively, in the context described in subsection A of this section. C. The provisions of this section shall also apply, as appropriate, to the subordinate officials within the Department of Defense who may use corresponding secretary titles, such as Deputy Secretary of War, Under the Secretary of War, in context described in subsection A of this section. D. All executive departments and agencies shall recognize and accommodate the use of such secondary titles in the internal and external communications, provided that the use of such titles did not create confusion with respect to legal, statutory, or international obligations. E. Statutory references in the Department of Defense, Secretary of Defense, and subordinate officers and components shall remain controlling until changed subsequently by law. F. Within 30 days of this order, the Secretary of War shall submit to the President, through the Assistant to the President of National Security Affairs, a notification for transmittal to the Congress of any office, executive department, agency, or component or command of that begins using a secondary Department of War designation. G. Within 60 days of this date of this order, the Secretary of War shall submit to the President, through the Assistant to the President of National Security Affairs, a recommendation on the actions required to permanently change the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. This recommendation shall include the proposed legislation and executive actions necessary to accomplish this renaming. Section 3. General Provisions. A. Nothing in this order shall be construed to impair, otherwise affect. A. The authority granted by law. B. The authority granted by law to executive department or agency in the head of thereof. Or C. The functions of the Director of Office of Management and Budget relating to the budgetary or administrative legislative proposals. D. This order shall be implemented consistent with the applicable law and subject to the availability of appropriations. And C. This order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, or entities, its officers, employees, agencies, or any other person. And D. This cost of publication of this order shall be borne by the Department of War. Donald J. Trump, the White House, September 5th, 2025. Go forth and do great things.